So by giving, though, what we're doing is we're practicing something, a sacred posture. The church was always this. The early church, it wasn't giving just in a moment when they were responding to a need. It was their habit to be generous, to be open-handed with what God has already placed in their hands. And generosity can be hard to live. It can be hard to live generously when we're living carefully, isn't it? I think a lot of people aren't generous not because of greed. I think a lot of it has to do with anxiety. I mean, we live in quite a precarious world. One of the things I was going to use the word hate. That's probably too big of a word, too strong of a word. One of the things I find most awkward to speak on as a pastor is anything to do with money. As awkward as talking about sex can be and politics, I will talk about them more freely than money. Because I just feel like people feel manipulated, and often people can, not just by churches, I just mean everybody is trying to get something from you. Whether it's to purchase something, and marketers do a great job at that. No shade to the marketers in the room. Or other charities, and you can feel a lot of pressure. And sometimes there's an anxiety. I think a lot of people hold back because they feel anxious. Tim Keller, the great pastor from New York City, he said it this way: we don't fail to be generous because we're selfish. We fail because we're scared. The real enemy of generosity isn't greed, it's fear. I like the Oxford scholar C.S. Lewis said it this way. He said, much the same. He said, we are far less ruled by greed than by the haunting suspicion that we must fend for ourselves. You ever feel like that? Like it all rides on you. Fear, not selfishness, tightens the fist. I know that there are probably stingy people in life. There's probably people that are driven by greed. I think we see that in our world and society. But I think the people that I interact mostly with we're not stingy people. We're just anxious people. We hold back because we can't imagine, and we fail to imagine and factor in God in our future. Generosity is impossible. Impossible when we live from a place of fear or scarcity. It only becomes natural when we factor in God's provisional love and provisional abilities into our life. I could speak from personal experience. The moments when Shelley and I were church planting and, rent's due and we don't have rent. And how God came through in those moments. I can speak to many moments where God had, it says in the Psalm says that we've never seen the righteous forsaken nor the righteous beg for food. In other words, God supplies our needs when we seek first his kingdom. And that might feel like an oversimplification because we've had moments maybe where we've had need and we felt like it does ride on us. It does ride on us. Jesus reminded his followers, because he knew this. Here's a couple of verses that he shares. In Matthew, he says this: do not worry about your life. Look at the birds of the air. Your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Seek first his kingdom, and all these things will be given to you as well. I like what it says in Luke chapter 12. He said, so don't be afraid, little flock. I love his language, his care for us. For it gives your Father great happiness to give you the kingdom. There's an aspect of life. We've talked about this in many other series, that you can't kill a Christian, you can just relocate them. That the greatest fear of our life, which is death, has already been met, has already been qualified. What are we afraid of in this life? What it is that grips us and controls us? Anxiety imagines a future where God won't show up. Faith remembers every time he already has. I love that. Anxiety imagines this future that God won't show up, and faith reminds us God already has. Now, I met with a guy this week. His name's Greg. He asked for coffee. He's a Christian leader. I've met him in the past. I haven't talked to him in quite a long time. But he asked to meet with me, and we had a little sit down, and we connected on Thursday of this week. And we were sitting in our cafe lounge, and we're just sitting, we're chatting. And his work is, he's one of the most generous people I've ever met. He's just He talks about generosity all the time, and he works mostly with business people. That's what his ministry is. He just encourages them, and I always have a heart for that because my dad was a businessman and grew up running stores, and so I love people that are supporting people in business because it can be quite lonely being a business person. I pray for you all the time if that's you. I pray for our community, and you're out there, and it can feel like you eat what you kill sometimes in life. Like it's so harsh. It can be all good or all bad. It never seems to be in the middle ground with that. And he says, I challenge business people to be radically generous. Radically generous. And he gave me this line. I thought about it all week, the rest of the weekend. He said, I always tell them in that context, I tell them, you will thank me 1,000 years from now that I challenged you to give today. Because 1,000 years from now, everything you've been holding tightly to will be gone. You can't take any of it with you. But you will have less regret when you realize I gave, I released, I didn't hold back. That I actually used what God placed in my hands to help the people around me. So I wanted to just bless some people in this room. I want to bless those of you that you wire money home every month. You're taking care of family. You are a safety net for people in other parts of the world. And part of your income goes to support family elsewhere. And I know some of you. And I just want to say, may God bless you as you bless your family. I want to acknowledge those who give to other charities, and they're just generous in life. And you give to other causes that really matter in this world. And I just want to say, may God bless you as you bless others. I think of those who care. There are people in this community, and you don't stand on a platform like our worship team has or I'm doing right now. You're not standing on a platform, but you quietly paid somebody's rent. You've quietly provided groceries for someone. You've slipped them an envelope to a single parent that's barely holding on. Nobody applauded, nobody knew, but heaven knew, and heaven applauded. May God bless you as you look out for others and you become God's provision in their life. I want to bless those that maybe you don't have a lot of money to give, but you give your time. You open your home. You open your dinner table. You have a spare couch. You have made room for people in your life. You've looked for those who don't have family, and you've brought them near to yourself, and you've become like family to them. You can't measure generosity in dollars. It's in actions. Actions that we take. And I want to say, may God bless you for making room and taking what God has placed in your hands to be a blessing to others. I want to bless those who you just give to this local church. You give to the church that you love. Faithfully giving here. We love this. Shelley and I practice this. We practice other charities ourselves too. But we practice giving here because we love this church. We love what we're trying to do together here. You know, we met with our staff team and our core leaders recently, and we were just acknowledging as a leadership of this church, the elders, the deacons, and the staff team, that God has just been doing something so special this year in this church. We see it. Every week, brand new people coming to faith in Jesus, brand new people being added to our community. God is doing something special among us. And every time we sacrificially give to that, we just amplify that. You know, I grew up in church, and I didn't know where the money came from. I saw my dad put money in a plate as they passed by. But you don't know, the government doesn't fund this. We don't. A denomination doesn't fund this. It's you. This is the reason this church is here. It's because people follow Jesus and just live generous and sacrificially, and they give. So there's a QR code going to come up on the screen. I don't talk about this often, ever in this church. We don't. But I felt I should, just as a sacred practice. There's a reason why we do this, a posture. The QR code that takes you to our giving page. Here's what I want to challenge you with. I want to challenge you with faithfulness. Faithfulness to family, to the needs around you, to the needs in this world, and even to this church family. So if you're here and you've been with us for a while, listen, if you're brand new to church, just skip this whole part. You don't need to participate. But if you've been here for a while and you've never given, why don't this be your first Sunday? That you signal to this community, I'm with you. I'm with you. If you give occasionally, I want to challenge you to give regularly. Again, signaling that I'm with you. This is my community. Now, do you have to give to be a part of this community? No, you don't. This is not a have to. This is a get to. This is what Greg said to me this past week. Like, you'll thank me 1,000 years from now that you lived an open-handed life. You will not regret that. I know that for sure. I've been with too many people at the end of their life to know that you'll never regret what you gave in this life. You will regret what you didn't. And if you give regularly, I'm going to encourage you to automate your giving. Now, I'll tell you why. Every month, I sit with our deacons and we go through the financials of this church because we want to steward it so well. And we try to account for everything where it goes and how we handle it as unto God. And I know this, every time I look at it, I'm just so thankful for the regular givers and those who automate their giving. I'll tell you why. We can plan the future of this church. We can plan beyond next month. We can make sure that it's stable and steady and healthy. And this church has always been that. And it's because you have been steady and faithful and regular. That helps this church to keep moving forward in its mission. So I want to thank you as your pastor. I don't talk about that often, and the sacred posture is the most awkward of all of my sacred postures that I'm sharing on today, because money's funny. Money has a lot of strings attached to it. And where your treasure is, there's where your heart is. Sometimes money bugs us because it's where our heart is, or where our fear is. I want you to know you can trust God. We sang about that, the goodness of God, and how faithful He is. He is faithful, friends. He's got you. Hasn't He had you to date? How many times have I thought, like, God, where are you? Only to look over my shoulder a year later and say, you were there the whole time. You were doing things in me. You created greater dependencies on me. Many times I've said to Shelley, because, who doesn't need a little bit more, right? You ever been in that place where you're like, I could use a little bit more, God? And I said to Shelley, if we won the lottery or something like that, you have these dreams. We might not need God the way we need Him. We might think we can do it on our own. We might think that we don't need to come to the table to get fed because we feel fed. Sometimes even that need is an opportunity to connect to God.